What's up, everybody? I have Taylor Thompson on the show today. She is the founder and CEO of Personal Brown House, podcast host, number one best-selling author of More Life, and a national speaker. Every summer, we try to take a pause to look at our lives here as business owners holistically. What's important in our personal lives? What's important for our business? And how do those merge together? Because you guys, we are bringing our personal life into business and our business affects our personal life. And so Taylor is here today to help us navigate the financial component of this and also has some great questions and reflection exercises that we can do right now to create more life for each and every one of us. All right, Taylor, welcome to Business by the Books.
Thank you. I'm super excited to be here.
All right, tell the audience a little bit about your mission in the world. Who are you? What do you do? And why do you do it?
Yes. So my mission and why I do it is very intertwined. So I'm most passionate about helping people avoid deathbed regret and really making the most of the one life that we are given. And I do so kind of in a different way than a lot of people out there. I lean a little less into the inspiration and a little more into the tactical, logistical. What does it look like when it comes down to time, money? And so that's really my passion. And one of the reasons I do that is because in 2020, my dad was diagnosed with, at the time, we were told it was a terminal cancer. He is doing amazing now.
Wow.
And
That's so cool. That's awesome.
He's been cancer free since the fall of 2020. So we were able to get that taken care of very quickly and easily. And it's been a blessing in disguise. But at the time, very scary and just really makes you evaluate the currency of time and how little of it we have, how precious life is. And, I was able at the time to be with my family almost full time during that and with my parents. And that was amazing. I don't live in the same state as my parents right now or at the time. And so I was able to kind of drop most things in my business and things still worked. I still had income coming in and really realized that, I used to have a business that was built off of trading time for money 100% of the time. I still do that to some aspect, but I really realized that I had kind of accidentally built myself a little bit of more freedom and flexibility in my business model. And so, it really kind of gave me an epiphany of really loving a personal brand business model. And so now a lot of what I do is helping entrepreneurs or non-entrepreneurs even just monetize their personal brand to create more of what they're looking for in life, which is something around money, time, legacy.
I love that. And I love that your father made it through that situation and that you were able to use that difficult time in your family to become even like that growth opportunity, right?
Yeah.
Like I'm constantly trying to tell my kids, my daughter has some health difficulties. Like where is the obstacle and how can we turn this obstacle into the growth opportunity that it could be in our lives rather than the victim mentality that we could possibly have. There's absolutely love that you were able to do that. Something that I was questioning as you were talking, is this for business owners or is this for people who are currently running a business and thinking about like, what is my personal brand within this business and how do you add additional monetary streams, or do you work with people who don't have a business yet and are but have that personal brand to monetize from the personal brand itself?
Yeah. So about 80%, maybe even 85% of the clients and people that I work with are existing entrepreneurs. They just might not be seeing themselves as a personal brand and they're kind of more under the business brand, which is also an amazing way to go. And they're kind of seeing that they aren't usually experiencing the freedom that they wanted to when they first jumped into entrepreneurship. And most of them are kind of in that trading time for money, or kind of like we were talking about before we hit record, chasing some arbitrary goal and, working themselves into burnout to get there. And so most of it is entrepreneurs, and we're just restructuring and kind of tinkering with their business model a little bit and looking at those income streams and seeing how we can work a little bit smarter and less harder. So, and then I do have some people, it's not my main market that I serve, but non-entrepreneurs who are like, okay, I, don't love the job or the career that I'm in, and I'm looking for something on the side. We now live in a culture, kind of especially the last 5 to 8 years,
Yeah.
where people can monetize their social media presence and things like that. And so I do have clients that are just like, you know what? I'm either wanting to take the leap out of what I'm currently in, or I'm just looking for some side income and, a stream of fulfillment that can bring in a little bit of money. And so that's a smaller portion of who I work with, but it still is a really magical market to serve.
I talk a lot about having seasons in our business. I think on social media and online, it's really easy to assume that we're all hyper focused on growth. We have to be
Mhm.
growing, doubling, tripling, quadrupling our revenue and the size of our business. And if you aren't growing your team, if you're not growing your revenue, if you're not hitting 6 figures, 7 figures, then you're not doing air quote enough. How do you help business owners understand what their actual goal is and what they need in their business so it doesn't always feel like I need more?
Yes. So a lot of it, you said the word enough, and a lot of it is helping people define what their enough is. And I'll get a little more tactical in that too. But we live in a world, especially with social media, where people are, especially business experts, are saying, this is what you need. You need to be, if you're not making 10K months, like, you're not successful, or 10K months is the freedom, or you need to, the growth. And growth is really amazing. I'm obsessed with growth as well, but not at the cost of my life and what makes, where I want to be spending my time, and my clients as well. And so when they really look into things, we do some deep dives. I have a lot of people that come to me in burnout who are looking for a way to work a little smarter and not harder. And we look back at their last, 5-10 years in business, and they've had a lot of success, but, I'm like, was it worth it? And a lot of people are like, no. They're like, I missed soccer games. I missed birthday parties. I was working on family vacations. I was doing all of these things. And so, I help them kind of define, like, what is that enough? Because we do kind of, especially as females, have this enough thing. We lay our head down at the pillow at night and we're just like, I just didn't do enough. And we always feel like we haven't done enough. And a piece of that is self-worth. A piece of that is just this external noise always telling us to do more. We need to have a 3-hour morning routine. We need to be, all of the things. And I love personal development. That's a big piece of my personal brand as well. But everything just has to work for the person and what their real goals are. So I do a lot of kind of legacy work, a lot of kind of deathbed type exercises with people of, like, really, when you're looking back on your life, what are the things that matter most? Business, personal. I leave lots of things open-ended because when you do that, you can hear a lot of patterns in what people say. Most people are talking about their personal life, right? And when they're talking about the life that it is that they're wanting to create. And entrepreneurs usually weave in, if I have a client she helps women feel confident with their wardrobe. Like, she'll come in and she'll take things out of their closet and help them curate a wardrobe that makes them feel really good and confident. And so that client, when we do the exercise, it's like, she's like, I am looking back and I'm seeing that I have helped hundreds of women with their confidence. And it's like, okay, hundreds of women, that's something that's tangible. So what does that look like? Why are you striving for helping 1 million people or working 7 days a week to do that? So that's something that's really important, is kind of looking back on our life and then starting to design our business, kind of from that angle versus just, what do you want your business to be? Because most people are going to say, I want $1 million business and I'll do whatever it takes to get there. And they don't realize that that could be something that takes years, maybe a lot of team, 7 days
Yeah.
a week of work and all of that stuff. A lot of people don't want to do what it takes to get
We
that. And
underestimate the amount of
Mhm.
effort and money and cost it takes to run a seven-figure business or pay ourselves 100,000, pay ourselves a $500,000. It takes a lot of effort. What's one thing that somebody can do, like, right now? They listen to the podcast, they reflect on what we're talking about. What's one exercise that they can go do on their own right away?
Yes. So two of my favorites. One is going to be just very open ended. Everybody's a little bit different with exercises. Some people want less structure. Some people want more structure. One is just getting super clear with like, what do you really want? Like, what is the goal of the business? Because it's really easy for us to get outside of that with all of this external noise. And so, better understanding just what do you really want? And most people, it's something around time or money is usually the biggest pieces of that. So asking yourself, what do you really want? And then secondly, is I love getting really tactical with people and like, how much time and money do you need to live the life that you want? And so it's very tedious, simple exercise, but really going through and actually creating your ideal calendar and actually adding up, okay, the life that it is that you want to live, that you're working so hard financially for, how much does that life cost? How much do you actually need to be paying yourself from your business every month? And that is going to help fuel, how you're monetizing your business, how hard you're working, where you're putting different effort and things like that. When people do those exercises, they either see they're very far off and it gives them that more tangible goal. Or most of the time, a lot of people are much closer than they think. And they're thinking in their head, oh, it's going to take me until I'm 60 years old to hit this number or, etc.
Yeah. I did this exercise several years ago, and I was pleasantly surprised that I was actually closer to hitting what I felt like I needed. And not for an overly extravagant life, because I'm not sure that I would ever want that or need that. I will definitely second that by just, how I did this exercise was I literally went through and calculated out all of my current personal expenses, everything that I had currently. But then if I went and purchased a different home, like not a crazy home, but just the home that I have been eyeing, the car that I had eyed, the number of vacations or other investments that I wanted, and then looked at those expenses, it is really interesting to see how much money you actually need to have coming in each month and or in savings to give yourself a level of comfort that you're going to be
Hmm.
able to achieve those. And by doing that, I
Absolutely.
was able to say, "Okay, I actually really love this life that I'm in today, and I
Yeah.
don't actually need that." I'm closer to that than I think, and if I wanted to go do that, I could go do that, but I'm gonna
Mhm.
choose this over that.
For sure. Yeah, I get a lot of entrepreneurs that come in that are like, I want to be flying private every time. And like, you know what? If we find out that is super important to some, and that's amazing. But most people come in, they're like, yeah, I want to be flying private. And then all of a sudden they do, if they're currently paying themselves $80,000 a year and they see, oh, I'm going to have to be paying myself $1.5 million a year, they're like, oh, yeah, what it's going to take to get to start paying myself 1.5 million, I don't really want to do that. They're like, I don't care about it that much. It's like, okay, good. We've got some tangible goals here.
Yeah, I love that. Can you speak a little bit about what a lifestyle business means in your world and your clients?
I run kind of my personal brand pretty casual. It's just who I am. And so I use the word chill a lot. But really, it's just a much more chill type of business model. And it's one that does lead with your calendar and your time first. And really, how is it that you want to be living your life? And infusing your business into that versus something that maybe being stuck in like Monday through Friday, 8 to 5 at your desk, which again is great for some. I have some friends and clients in the industry that are like, nope, I want that because everything outside of that is life. I'm like, that's great. I'm one who I love to work here and there throughout the week, a little sporadic, but if I want to go to a hot yoga class with a friend on a Tuesday morning, then I'm going to do that. And so it's usually entrepreneurs who are looking to live more of their life and have less of a focus on their business. And so it is kind of getting that tangible of like, what is it that you want your calendar to look like? And let's fit your business into that. And then in a personal brand sense, it's really monetizing not necessarily just the things that you're good at. A lot of people come to me and they're like, I'm really good at this. Like, I want to make a business out of it. And I'm always going to ask, like, do you love that? Because there's a difference between zone of genius, zone of aliveness. We want to find the bridge between the two. But a lot of people get stuck in a zone of genius of like, well, I'm just really good at this, or people have told me that I'm good at this, or this is something that I can do and help people, but it's not something that lights them up. And so there are kind of four main categories that I want to make sure we check those boxes when building a business. And that's, are you going to be able to hit what I call your more life money number? Are we going to be able to have the more life calendar that you want? And then also fulfillment and legacy. So what is the legacy and the impact that you want to leave? But then also we want you to be fulfilled. So those are kind of the four main pieces of a lifestyle business.
Talk to me about your more life concept.
Mm-hmm.
What does that mean to you? And how do you use the more life concept with your clients?
Yeah. So a lot of it is, and I wrote a book on this titled More Life.
Okay, I love it.
Yeah. And it's just something, it kind of goes back to the deathbed regret passion that I have, and really kind of taking a look around and seeing, especially with more generations, I'm a millennial, so I might sound much older saying something like this, but I'm like, just looking at generations and how they're changing over time, and just seeing that we are more distracted, unhappy, unhealthy, all of the things than ever before, and busy. And people are just filling that calendar full of things that really don't matter to them. And so I just kind of took a look around at the world and kind of paired that with my experience with my dad's cancer diagnosis, and just really realized that more people, when you have conversations with them, what they're really wanting is just more life. And yes, we're living life every day, but most people aren't really living. And so that's something that I'm super passionate about. And how I kind of pair it with my clients is really starting with, what is that life? Like, what does that look like? Okay, right now you have meetings 5 days a week. Is that something that you want to be doing? Or do you want to have meetings 1 or 2 days a week? And like, how can we bundle that? And maybe on Mondays, you want that to be, a full reset day after the weekend. Maybe you have lots of kids activities on the weekends and Mondays seem crazy, but maybe you actually want to be taking Mondays off, and just kind of getting a little bit more tangible with what is that life that they want to live. And then let's create the business strategy around that.
How do you work with, or what do you say to the person who identifies as a workaholic?
Yeah.
Or somebody who just, like, I think we're trained
Mm-hmm.
we're trained to work, right? Right.
Yes.
I've watched it in my own kids, the way that we go to school, the way that we come out of school, like we're programmed for factory life.
Yes.
And it was a really big adjustment for me to work for somebody else 9 to
Mm-hmm.
5, to work for myself. And I
Mm-hmm.
actually really needed the structure of that schedule. So for me, I'm still working that schedule,
Yep.
and I love what I do. Like, I really love what I do, and I'm very passionate about it. And so it tends to consume my thoughts and energy. So how do you speak to that person to create more life for them?
Yeah. So I was also that person for a lot of years, most of my 20s. And that was something that it wound me up in bed for a couple of years, healing from burnout. And it's tough because when you love what you do, you just want to work all the time. Like, everything is really exciting. And so I think the biggest thing is just getting really real of, if you identify as a workaholic or a busy entrepreneur, or somebody who would, most of their identity is in their work, it's asking, what is the purpose, or why is it that you're working so hard? And it might be because you truly love so much of what you do. Some clients are just like, I love what I do. right? And they're like, I would do it 7 days a week. And that's amazing if you're truly getting fulfillment, if you're not losing sight of what matters most in the grand scheme of your life, then I think that that can be very healthy, right? If it gives you lots of energy, you're still able to take care of your health, have good relationships and all the things. And if it's not that for you, then usually it is some mindset work, some self-worth work, because we do just throw, and I did for so long, just throw my worth into work. And if I wasn't succeeding in work, I didn't feel successful. I didn't feel worthy. I didn't feel enough. And that is a very customized, personalized journey for people. But I think just starting to ask yourself why. I do love the Simon Sinek, 7 levels of why exercise.
Yeah.
Anybody listening can Google that. I have my clients do that for kind of a piece of the framework that I teach, and just getting really honest with why it is that you work a lot or want to be working a lot. Sometimes it's avoidant, sometimes it's a worth, and sometimes it's just out of pure joy and energy and just excitement to serve and to leave an impact. So just do a little bit of digging.
Appreciate that.
Yeah.
We, as I'll call it the workaholics. We have some reflection to do and some homework to do from that. So I appreciate that. I want to swing this back into financials and how we look at that, because two things. I think a lot of our clients and business owners will avoid opening up our emails because we are sending them their financial statements, which I think can be correlated with their report card. Like, as if we're getting a report card in the mail telling us if we passed or failed from owning a business this month. Like, our profit and loss doesn't tell us that. It's not a report card. But how does somebody, detach that self-worth from their financials, or what are your thoughts in general on that concept?
Yeah. So I wish so much that I have cracked the code to the self-worth piece, and I have not. I really wish I did, because I think so much of life and just how we live life and how we do business comes down to that. And I think 100% of humans on the planet have self-worth work to do. And from the financial piece, I think for me, it's because it does feel natural of, when you're in business, numbers are definitely a tool for success. It is, some measurement of success in a business, right? If a business is continuing to lose $20,000 every month, then is it a successful business? Maybe in some other areas, but financially it's not. And you just can't go on for too long doing that. And so I think as entrepreneurs, we do take that on as, we tie worth and money so intertwined. And one of the exercises this can kind of be applied here as well is when I'm talking pricing with my clients, and, there's a lot of advice out there online that's like, you should be charging your worth. And I try and make it very, very clear to people that we should not be attaching our worth to money at all. I'm a big, we need to charge market value, and there's a range there, and what people are getting, but we attach that to our worth. And so when we make more money, we think we're worth more. And when we are losing money, we make that, we make it personal. And so for me personally, what has helped me kind of detach away from, if I have a month that's not as great as I wish it would have been, or a year that didn't quite land like I thought it would financially, is just understanding that money is a tool, and data is a really beautiful thing. I usually say data over drama. And so we, being able to have kind of that financial report card and the numbers that are given to us, we can, as entrepreneurs, look at that and try as much as possible to be not emotionally tied to it, but look at, okay, this is feedback for how I, am doing, and I can see what I'm doing well and maybe do more of that, and opportunities for growth. Not necessarily, okay, I failed at this, or this was terrible. What am I doing? Because for a lot of people, it does feed some sort of mindset insecurities that we have, of telling ourselves we're not a good business owner. We get a report card that shows financially, we're just like, oh, I was right, I'm not a good business owner. And we just kind of do the spiral. So as much as possible, just trying to look at it as data and numbers. And it's just a snapshot of the past. But just because that was our past financials does not mean that needs to be our future financials. And anytime you get that report card, so everybody listening, as soon as you get it, open it up as soon as you can, because that is, days or weeks sooner that you can make changes to give yourself the business that you want.
How can we explore having more life? Like, what's one thing that somebody who's listening can go and do right now, other than go read your book, about having more life in this human experience that we're having?
Yeah, one of my favorites is just taking notice of moments that mean a lot to you, especially those really, really small moments. And you can do this in business or in your personal life, but moments that just kind of make your heart swell. Because I think too often we are stuck in like, oh, I got to check my emails. Like my client might have emailed me this, or my team might need me, or checking social media. And we're missing out on a lot of the small moments and getting joy from, if you're at lunch with some people and you're kind of scrolling through social media, you might miss the joy on someone's face when they're talking about something that means a lot to them. And so I think that's just a very tiny, free thing that people can start doing, is just noticing things more. Meaningful moments is one of my favorite things. And it's really just, those moments that make your heart feel like it's expanding 3 times. It's just going to jump out of your chest, and just like pausing as much as you can in that moment and just feeling that. So,
awesome. Thank you. I appreciate that. Where can listeners learn more about you, your work, and if somebody's interested in exploring their own personal brand, where can they do that?
Yeah, absolutely. So my handle used to be at Hey Taylor Thompson. Thanks to some hackers a couple months ago, I am now starting from scratch on social media, but I am now at the Taylor Thompson on Instagram. And then I'm also the business owner of the Personal Brand House, where we help entrepreneurs monetize their personal brand. And you can find us at personalbrandhouse.com or at Personal Brand House. We have a free monetization matrix that I will send you the link for the show notes. But it's a spreadsheet that people can just look at to see, here's all of the different ways that you can monetize your personal brand. Even if you don't operate as a personal brand, there's still income stream options just as a business in general. And there's lots of fun columns. I'm a big spreadsheet girly. So I love
speaking to my heart.
Yeah. And so I love, we've really kind of broken everything down into income streams that are slower ROI, faster ROI, ones that take more time to set up, or, less time ongoing. And so you can kind of see what's most important to you in this next season if you're looking to add an income stream to your business. And so that's free. And I will send you the link for that in the show notes.
We'll put it all in the show notes so everybody has everything. And I just really encourage anyone who's listening today to explore the concept of more life. We don't have to be part of hustle culture. We don't have to tie our worth to our financials or to the growth of our business. We can use financials as a tool. We can use our business as a tool for leaving a legacy and being part of our communities. So I just really appreciate you encouraging us to see our whole lives and not just our business lives, and how that can intertwine with our personal finances. So thank you so much for sharing.
Absolutely.
I hope you enjoyed today's episode of Business by the Books. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe. This is the #1 way we can help other entrepreneurs find this podcast, because here at Kickstart Accounting Inc., it is our mission to help entrepreneurs understand their numbers, get access to this information, and grow and thrive in their business. So please help me help other entrepreneurs understand their numbers so they can finally grow and thrive.